Are you considering renting a Tesla from Hertz or Turo or some other rental agency and you've never even driven an electric vehicle before? Or perhaps you own an EV, but you just don't know what the rental experience will be like. In any case, this video is for you. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This video is based on a recent rental experience that my wife, Misinformation, and I had in California. We rented a Tesla Model Y from Hertz, and I would imagine that mostly people will have a similar experience on Hertz and Turo and other rental agencies. But I'll be sure to note where Hertz's experience might be very different from Turo's experience, specifically with the phone app and such. Anyway, I want to go through kind of like from the beginning of walking up to your vehicle all the way through to returning the vehicle, and all of the little steps in between so that you can get into your vehicle and behave like you're an expert in driving an EV already, even though you've never touched an electric vehicle before. What I'm going to do here is introduce each section, and I'll put a chapter marker at the beginning so you can easily pop through after you watch this once through the first time, and you can go to the specific things. And of course, I'm going to begin with walking up to the vehicle. Many people find one of the most difficult things about a Tesla EV is how in the world to get into it, because the door handles are not your traditional door handles.
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So guess what? We have a new Tesla Model Y. Actually, this is from Hertz. We're renting it. We're in San Jose for the AI Day #2. But this is really cool. I figured I would actually do a quick, just sort of like, what do you do when you get a new Tesla Model Y or Model 3 and you want to drive it for the first time, especially if you're not used to driving a Tesla. So first things first, you're going to get it, at least from a rental company. Push the back of the thing. Okay, we should actually start with this. Push the back, open the front, and grab it. It works really well if you use your thumb.
One important note here is that when you're inside the vehicle, you should always press the little top button so you're holding the handle of the door, and there's a button where your thumb goes that usually has a little door etched into it. That's the one you're supposed to push. The one at the bottom, there is a lever on the bottom of the handle that you can pull up mechanically. That's a mechanical lever, and it's an emergency lever. In other words, it doesn't rely on the batteries or anything like that. So if you got into an accident, God forbid, that's the thing you would use. You would actually pull up on that lever and mechanically disengage the car door. But the electronic lever lowers the window a little bit as it opens the door, and you should always use that if you can. The emergency lever is only for emergencies.
There's it's a little hard to see because it's dark, but there's a thing with a lighted door handle here. You want to press that. There's also an emergency latch down here, so in case you got in an accident or the power went out, you can grab that and pull it, but it's mechanical, and it will actually damage the window if you do it too many times. So the way you want to do this is push this button, and what happens is the window pops down just a little bit, and then you can open it. But aside from that, it's great. So, yep.
Turning to the next subject, key cards. So if you're renting through Hertz, you're going to have to use a key card in order to get in and out of the vehicle. For most of us who are used to driving a Tesla, we're used to using our phone app, 99% of the time. Yes, I do have my key card in my wallet, but I never ever use it unless I'm giving it to somebody to like change out the tires or something like that. So it's very odd that we would ever use the key card. But in the Hertz situation, because they don't really allow you to connect up the vehicle to your phone app, you do need to use the key card, and there are some differences between the way that you use your vehicle with a phone and the way you use your vehicle with a key card.
Then inside the car, you will find, unfortunately, they put it in this plastic packaging, so it's going to be kind of annoying to carry around. But so you've got your Tesla card, which you'll use, and in order to drive, what you do is you place it right here and push your foot on the brake, and that enables drive mode. So somehow I managed to forget to record this while we were traveling and renting. So I put my phone in airplane mode so that it's basically having to use the key card. So here's the key card. You put it down here right behind the drink tray, and then you can see that the car just decides it wants to work now. And then I will show you how to lock and unlock the door in just a second. All right, and if you want to lock and unlock the door with the key card, what you do is you put it, you can see where the camera is right here. There's a little like thing, and put it right underneath there. Someplace, there we go. About that far underneath where the camera is. And you can tell it's locked when the mirrors fold. And then if you want to come back and open it, you just push it right here. So like I said, much easier if you can use your phone to do this, but if you can't use your phone, the Keycard works like that. So again, lock and unlock is pushing it right about here.
Speaking of the phone app, this is something that Tesla and Hertz could definitely do. You'll have a better experience with Turo as far as I understand it. I've never rented through Turo, but I believe in that case, the owner can give you temporary permission to the car. And so basically, if you have the Tesla app loaded on your phone, you can have the vehicle owner transfer the rights to drive the car to your phone. And that will make things more seamless because you can get walk-away locking and things like that, where as you leave, the car locks, as you approach, the car unlocks. And there's some things like when you're charging and stuff that it's nice to have your phone because it can tell you what the state of charge is, how soon you need to get back to your car, all of those kinds of things. So anyway, in the future, I hope that Hertz and Tesla get together and do some sort of temporary ownership thing so that you can use your phone app. But in the meantime, you do have to use your key card in order to get in and out of the car and to start the vehicle. So it's a little more cumbersome than it is with the phone app. And if you're renting the car to sort of test out a Tesla, do understand that the experience is significantly better when you're using a phone app than with the key card. Now let's talk about the interior features of the car once you've gotten into it. The first thing is that the big giant screen in the middle, which is basically everything that you need to know, is a touch screen. So you can directly interact with the screen. In other words, you just push things and things happen, right? You don't have to use a wheel or some sort of remote control device in order to make the touch screen work. Next up, as you first get into the car, you need to adjust your steering wheel and your side mirrors and everything. And this is how you do that.
All right, so the first thing to note is that this is a charging pad here, which is very convenient. So if you put that here, it should in 1 second, maybe. It was charging. Oh, it's 100% charged, that's why. Yeah, so it's charging. Anyway, so there's a charging pad there for 2 phones, which is great. There's also this nice little thing, which I like better than ours, which does a cool little slidey backy thing. Ours has the old version of that. And then you've got your basic controls, so you can do things like open the frunk from pushing this button. You can open the trunk here. You can lock the doors. So I now just lock the doors. Now I unlock the doors. So there's a lot of controls that you can do. But before you start out, what you should probably do first is set your controls. And so it'll pop up with a whole bunch of controls here. The important ones are mirrors and steering. So what you do is you push the mirror button, and then you can see this is set to left, and it shows you the left scroll wheel over here. If you roll it up and down, it makes the mirror go up and down. And if you push it left and right, it makes the mirror go out and in. So relatively straightforward. And then when you're good with that, you can push right, do the same thing with the right. You sort of adjust it as you want. And then what you can do is press save. And let's see, we can go here. Oh, also, I should have said you can go to driver profile before you even do any of that stuff. So add new driver, put your name in here. So I'm selecting my name. So you can see that there is that, and it's automatically selected. So then you can push so you did the mirrors, and now you can push the steering wheel. And this is kind of cool, watch. So if you roll it up and down, the steering wheel goes up and down as you will. But then if you push it backwards and forwards, it comes towards you and moves back, which is very cool. So anyway, get it set to what you like, press save.
After this, you can use the touchscreen interface to adjust your preferences for any other features you want, including doing metric and imperial, navigate on autopilot, distance, and all sorts of other features that you can access through the menu set of the vehicle. Once you've got things set up, you need to know what the wheels and buttons on the left and right of the steering wheel, which is really your only interface aside from the touchscreen, what those do and how those function. So let's take a look at that next. All right, so basic functionality, I'm using my car as opposed to the rental car because I forgot to record this when I was doing that. The left-hand side, generally speaking, controls like the audio and stuff. So if you scroll up and down, you can see how that changes the audio levels. And if you go back and forth, if you're playing music, it will skip ahead and backwards. And if you push in, it pause plays. So right, if it's playing music, it'll pause when you push it in. And if it's paused, it will play music, right? Okay, whatever. The right hand wheel, this one, if you push it in, you get voice command there, which is going to be very confused about, right? So it's attempting to get what I'm saying here. And then if you push to the right, like this, you get less and less distance, so that's your follow distance. And if you push it to the left, you get more and more follow distance, so you can go between 2 and 7 car lengths, basically, that you're following by pushing the button to the right and to the left. And then finally, this won't matter as we're driving, but if you scroll this up and down and you're on traffic array or cruise control, So let's say it's set to 55 or something like that, and you want to go 60 instead, maximum speed. You can roll this up to go faster, and you can roll it down. And if you roll it really fast, it goes 5 miles per hour per time. And if you roll it slower, it goes 1 mile per hour per time. But I can't really show you that without the car being in drive. But that's basically what it does. So left-hand side is pretty much music. And right-hand side is about cruise control, closer and further away, faster and slower. And if you push it in, it engages the voice command option so that you can voice command your car. And you can pretty much do everything from voice commands. So for example, you can do open glove box. Ta-da! Oh, what a mess. This is why I should use the rental car instead of our car. But anyway, that's how it all works. So this is the stuff to do with music. This is cruise control. So I could say, navigate to San Jose Airport, which we're already at. So it's going to be a really short trip. But you can see how all you have to do is push this button, speak it. And then if we move back here, it gives you a bunch of choices about what you want to do. I don't really want to.
You can also do that too if you want to open the glove box or you want something to come up on the screen. So you can say that.
Exactly. So you can do things like that. You can also say, set the temperature to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think it'll do that. Yep. So there you go. And now it's on manual. So we can go here. We can push auto. This is actually very useful too. So if you push auto, it kind of sets everything up. And I believe you can push auto seat warmers, all of that stuff. And there's actually a biodefense mode in the new ones. We don't have that in ours. But so basically what you can do is just push the temperature and then it figures out all the stuff it needs to do. If you want to split it left and right, you just push this one. Sorry. Push like up or down and press split. And so you can see how you can adjust each side separately, or you can get rid of split. So yeah. And yeah, so that's navigation. And then the last thing you'll want to do is you'll want to sync your phone to it. So if you go up here in the right corner up here next to LTE, there's a Bluetooth button. And I don't know who these other people are. This is me currently, but I will go ahead and like delete this person. You'll probably have a bunch of other people's phones on here, so forget. And if you want to create a new one, you just click add new device. Oh, start search. There we go. Sorry. And then what you'll do is my phone's already there, but it'll pop up your phone. You go to the Bluetooth settings. The pairing thing will have some code number. You type that stuff in. And then apparently Ryan's got an iPhone too. But then what you can do is you can click on your phone and you can set it as the priority device, which means it will always automatically connect to that device as soon as you get in the car. And then you can do things like sync contacts and recent calls and all of that too.
Next, what about the windshield wiper? It's not in the traditional place that you might expect, so let's take a look at how you engage that.
So one other thing I should mention, especially since it's raining right now, is the windshield wipers are on auto, but if you want to override that and have the windshield wipers wipe, you just push this button on the left-hand stalk and it will wipe. And if you push it and hold it down, it will do the, basic spray thing. So that's where that is, just so you know. There is a little, writing here, so you can look at that, but basically as long as you know that that's the right spot. And yeah, we're on the coast of California, so of course it's raining a little bit.
The interior lights are located right above the rear view mirror for the front passengers and above the passenger doors on the outside for the passengers in the back seat. You also notice that there's a little pull down thing where you can hang your coat or whatever in the rear if you need to. You will notice that the lights are not quite as good as in a traditional car because you don't have the lights directly overhead because there's a giant glass roof rather than a closed roof where you can access a light directly above things. So it is a little bit darker in the dark oftentimes, and I actually have to use the flashlight on my phone sometimes if I'm looking for something down on the ground. Anyway, I think that it's a good trade-off because you get that beautiful glass roof and you get to look out at the stars or the sun or whatever it is from the back. So that's all really cool. But just note that you're not going to get super bright light inside the car. Next up, in case of emergency or if you just need to pull over to the side of the road or something, you need to know where the hazard lights button is. And that's something, again, where it's a little bit not in a traditional spot. Where it is right in between the two lights that you use for the cabin, directly above where the rear view mirror is. So you just push that once and it turns on the hazard lights, push it again and it turns them off.
And finally, how do you open things like the frunk, which takes the place of the engine, so there is storage in the front of the vehicle, or the trunk, or the charging port, or anything like that. Like I said before, you can push the voice command button and you can say open frunk or open trunk. You could also go on the display when it's in park and you can just push the button that says open for the frunk or for the charging port or whatever. And you can also say open butthole if you want to open the charging port, which is a lot more fun than open charging port. Now let's get to driving. How do you engage drive and reverse, and what about regenerative braking and how regenerative braking mode works while you're driving a vehicle versus a standard ICE car?
All right, one other thing I forgot to mention earlier is park, reverse, neutral, and drive. So it's in park automatically. If you push your foot on the brake and press the park button, which is just pushing this straight in, it goes into park. If you pull up on the stalk with the brake pressed, you see it goes into reverse. If you push down, it goes into drive. And neutral's a little tweaky. You hardly ever have to use it, but you have to kind of hold down for a couple of seconds. It's always like, oh, I think I have to be in park first. I think that's the problem. Anyway, if you're in park and you hold down, yeah, there you go. So you kind of hold down softly for a couple of seconds and it goes into neutral. Only time I ever need that is when I go to the car wash, and inevitably the people are always waiting for me like, what? But number one, when you take your foot off the accelerator or the gas pedal in a Tesla, it slows down by itself. And then it goes into what's called hold. Right there, you can see it says hold. So it actually stays still. Even if you're on a slope, it'll stay exactly where it is without you having to push the brake. So if you drive correctly, you can do it without ever pressing the brake, which is really cool. And then when you have to go back to doing it the other way, it really kind of sucks. So anyway, it's just worth knowing that because it's pretty aggressive. What it does is it regenerates. Here, if I take my foot off the accelerator, you can see it's black, showing that I'm using power. But then when I take my foot off the accelerator, you can see it turns green, showing that I'm getting regeneration back again.
So you'll definitely notice when you have regenerative braking on that it will feel very different from driving an ICE vehicle. You won't get that coasting effect. But after you drive it, please don't turn it off. Drive it for at least a day or something and try it out, because my personal opinion, and this is backed up by many, many other people, is that once you drive it with regenerative braking and realize you really don't have to use your actual brake, when you go back to an ICE car, you're going to just be like, oh gosh, this is no fun at all to actually have to press the brake. It's much nicer just to use the accelerator pedal. So I promise you, after you drive with regenerative braking for a day, you really won't want to go back to your internal combustion engine vehicle. Next, let's talk about navigation. How do you engage and utilize navigation? You can either touch the navigation bar and type in an address, or much more easily just use the voice command feature and say something like, again, McDonald's or an address or something like that, and then you follow the blue path that appears after a few seconds on the screen. Also, if you press the settings button, the little gear, you can change things to voice feedback on or off and other settings to meet your preferences. Now, what about navigate on autopilot? If you've heard of Tesla's full self-driving beta, which by the way, I have this shirt, Tesla's full self-driving beta tester. If you want this shirt, it's in the merch store, so check it out. But anyway, if you've heard of that, you're not going to get full self-driving beta with a rental. Again, at least with a company like Hertz. With Turo, that might actually be something that you can get. But even without that, you get what's called navigate on autopilot, which is particularly useful on the highway. So if you're renting the vehicle and just sort of puttering around town locally or something, you won't really find this particularly useful. But if you fly in and then you drive from San Francisco to Yosemite or something to go on a vacation, then you'll find the navigate on autopilot is great. What it does is it maintains distance between you and the car ahead of you, and it also lane keeps. Now, it won't change lanes, it won't navigate on city streets or anything like that, but it's really great when you're driving down the highway, because basically you have to keep your hand on the wheel for legal reasons, but it does the driving for you unless you need to change lanes or get off the highway and go onto some other highway. And one thing to note is that you can use the right hand scroll wheel. If you push it right or left, you can set the follow distance to 2 to 7, I believe is the biggest number. So basically you can set how far you're comfortable following vehicles in front of you.
So it's off by default, but you can turn that on, agree to the thing. You can set your speed limits. You can set what you're comfortable with. All of this stuff is adjustable and everything. So if you set this is not going to give you full self-driving beta, but it will drive on the highway just fine. I don't think it'll do the automatic lane changing, but it'll follow traffic, it'll follow the road. So all of that stuff, if you're driving any kind of long distance, you'll be very happy about that.
So there's a basic autopilot included with Tesla, which is actually really, really good, but you need to know how to actually implement it. So the first thing you want to do is when there's a little gray steering wheel up here, if you push down once, it goes into what's called traffic aware cruise control. So now you'll see that it'll actually it'll adjust speed to make sure that you stay behind the person. But the real fun happens when you double tap this. So you push down like that and the steering wheel turns blue. And then you see the two little blue lines on the outside, and that means it will stay in this lane. You do have to keep your hand on the wheel for legal reasons and jiggle it once in a while, but basically the car will steer itself, so it's going to make this turn all by itself without you having to intervene. And of course, if you weren't renting the car, if you were using full self-driving, the more expensive versions, it would turn into a single blue line and it will actually change lanes and do all the navigation for you and all that stuff too. But still, even this basic thing is fantastic, and it really reduces the amount of effort that you have to expend on a trip where you're driving. And we're going to Monterey right now, so there you go. Anyway, so that's the basics of how to do that. Oh, one other thing here is this wheel, the scroll wheel, if you push it to the right and to the left, it sets how many car lengths behind you want to stay. So if you push it to the right, the minimum is 2 car lengths, and if you push it, I think the maximum is 7. Yeah, 7. So it's between 7 and 2, depending on your comfort level with being behind the person in front of you. So that's definitely worth knowing. Not something you would know unless somebody told you. So that hopefully is a useful little bit of information to know about.
And speaking of longer road trips, what about range? When do you know it's time to recharge? Well, up at the top of the screen, you'll see a little battery icon that will either show you miles or percentage, and you can touch the battery icon and change it from miles to percentage. The miles is not particularly useful. It tends to overestimate how far you can go. The battery percentage might be a better way to look at it, but in any case, whatever you're comfortable with, as it starts getting down below about 30% battery charge, that's when you should probably start looking around for where to recharge. And if you're driving on a longer road trip, the car will actually tell you where you need to stop. So it will actually figure it out, and it'll say you'll have 10% battery when you get to this supercharger, and you can stop here, and you can then charge for 20 minutes and continue on your trip. Which of course brings up where to charge. You have two choices basically. You have Tesla superchargers, or you have all of the other chargers. If you do Tesla supercharger, at least with Hertz, it's incredibly straightforward. It's just a pass-through. You basically plug the vehicle in and it starts charging, and Hertz just passes through the charge to you eventually after you return the vehicle. For other chargers like EVgo or Electrify America or something, I would highly recommend downloading the app and getting everything set up beforehand. You also need to know that there's a J1772 connector adapter that you'll need to get out of the back of your Tesla to connect up to these other superchargers. Certainly in my experience, I've found using Tesla superchargers to be much more seamless and efficient, and they are almost never broken, so it's really, really ideal to use them. So I highly recommend using the Tesla supercharger if you have access to it. And of course, if you have access to a home, even if it's only a 120 volt outlet, you can just plug your Tesla in. All of that stuff should again be in the trunk in a little bag, and you can just plug it into an outlet or an extension cord, plug it into the vehicle, and it will charge very, very slowly off a 120, but it will actually still charge. So how do you recharge your Tesla? It's pretty darn simple at a supercharger. With Tesla's informative screen, and especially with the fact that it tells you when and how long you need to stop on a road trip, I don't think you should have any range anxiety issues. Certainly it's different than driving a gas vehicle, but in a lot of ways it's actually easier.
Alrighty, so let's talk about charging. The first thing about charging, and we're at a Tesla supercharger, so you don't have to worry about this, but if you go to a different charger, this is in the back of the vehicle, at least if you rent a Hertz vehicle. This is a J1772 connector, so you would plug this into, like if you did Electrify America or ChargePoint or something like that, and then on the other side is the Tesla adapter. You don't need this if you're going to a Tesla supercharger, however. You do need to know how to open up your charge port, which is this guy, which you push that little lightning bolt button, but this is way more fun. Watch this. Open butthole. And it opens. So that's great. So anyway, then let's go outside and talk about how to plug it in and do all that stuff. Okay, so this thing will be open. If it's not open, let me see if I can close it.
what you do, there's no latch or anything on this. You just pull it out. There's a little white button on top, and you can push the button and it will open up, and then you plug it in. And this is the first time I've tried this with Hertz, so we'll see how this works. But basically it flashes blue for a few minutes, and then it turns green. And when it turns green, you can check in here, and it will say, whoops, no, it just went away. But basically it says supercharging and how much time is left up here. So it tells you exactly how long you have to supercharge for, right? And that's to charge up to that maximum amount. If you're on a trip, it'll tell you how long before you're allowed to go on the next leg of the trip. So it'll just say like, stop for 20 minutes, charge up, and then you can go on the next leg of the trip or something. Right now we're just charging because we're just charging. Anyway, as far as this is concerned, and like I said, I'm not used to renting, so this is a rental, but Hertz says that what will happen is they will just pass through the charge. So whatever Tesla charges us, they'll just put it on the credit card that we use for the rental. We don't have to worry about it, so you don't have to have a credit card. There's nothing. You saw how easy that was. It's ridiculously simple to do this. The one thing I will say, and if you look at this cable, see how this is a skinny cable-ish? If you get to one that's a 150 kilowatt charger as opposed to a 250, it's good etiquette to always skip a charger between you if there is room for that. Because the older style chargers, which have the thicker cables, are 150 kilowatts, but they split that between the two neighboring chargers, which means that two people are parked there charging, they'll both get like only 75 kilowatts as opposed to 150, so it'll charge slower. So anyway, for these guys, it doesn't matter, the 250s, and you can always check, it says what the kilowatts of the charger is. But anyway, the higher kilowatt chargers, the 250s, you don't have to worry about this because they're all individual and they'll all go max speed. But the older ones, you want to be nice if you can to leave room between you and the next car, and that will just be good etiquette. So anyway, it's as simple as that. When you get done, you just push the button on top again, unplug it, and just stick it back in. Yeah, just that little guy right there. That's about it. It is honestly easier than, you know, getting gas on it, really. Don't even have to bust out your credit card. And usually there's something around. This place doesn't seem like it has a lot, but usually there's something like restaurants or things like that that you can walk to and go have a drink or go to the bathroom while you're waiting. So.
And speaking of charging, what are charging best practices? Well, number one, unless you're on a trip and you really need to, don't really charge over 80% because the last 20% goes very, very slowly. Basically, when the battery's empty, it can charge much, much faster than when it's full. And so what you'll see is it's charging really, really fast when it's like at 20% full, but as it gets up to 60, 70%, it'll start to slow down. And when you get above 80%, it takes a really long time to charge. So unless you really know that you need to charge above 80% is certainly sufficient to drive around and for most road trips as well. Again, when you're on a longer road trip, the navigation system will tell you when you need to leave. So it will tell you where you need to stop, when you need to stop, and how long you need to stop. And it might say like 20 minutes or something like that. And after that 20 minutes, you can just go ahead and leave. Just push the button, unplug the vehicle, get back in the car and drive on, and it will tell you the next place that you need to stop. And generally, it's not really worth staying much longer than the computer tells you because that last part, again, is rather slow to charge. So those extra minutes are not going to really give you all that much advantage over just leaving when the computer tells you to. Also beware of busy locations. If you charge up and the vehicle stops charging and it's a busy location, Tesla will start to charge you $1 a minute for idle fees after 5 minutes. And this is where not having a phone app really kind of is annoying because with the phone app, the phone will actually tell you, it will alert you and say like, hey, you better go back and get your car and unplug it and drive on, park someplace else, or else you'll get idle fees. Without the phone app, you just basically have to set a timer or remember what time you need to get back to your car. So it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt, but again, not that big a deal, but just definitely know that if it's a busy supercharger and you charge the car up and then it stops and then you go in or something like that and it sits for 30 minutes, you could get charged $30 extra. So be very, very wary of that. And while you're charging, don't forget about the entertainment and other options available right in the touchscreen.
One other thing to note when you're supercharging, because we've got 13 minutes left, is that there are entertainment options. So if you click the little 3 dots down here, there's a thing called theater, which, you know, it says like the little clapperboard icon. You click this and you can choose from any of these sources, and of course you can log in to whatever you want. YouTube is easy, etc. But you can also go to arcade mode and you can play any of a number of games while you're around, including the
I really like beach buggy racing. It's just fun. You use the steering wheel, you turn around. And there's also the toy box, which means you can do something like this. This is where, you know, everyone talks about the emissions thing, and here we go. So, oh, that makes me happy. So, there we go. So yeah, you can have hours of fun with your children or yourself if you're doing that. There's a light show, there's boombox, there's romance mode with fire and things like that. So just have at it. You can play around with all of this stuff while you're waiting for it to charge, so you can entertain yourself. And now let's hope this doesn't happen, but what happens if there's a problem like a flat tire while you're driving? The first thing to know is that Teslas do not have spare tires, so you're not going to be able to find that. So what you need to do is either call Hertz or the rental agency or call the person who's the owner on Turo, and then they will probably send somebody out to come meet you, but you can also try contacting Tesla directly. Now, this is going to be, again, a little bit more difficult. If you have the phone app and you own a Tesla, you just text message them and they take care of everything. But I think, and again, we didn't have this experience, so I don't know for sure, but I believe if you're renting from a company like Hertz, you would contact Hertz and they will take care of the service issues. But basically, if you have a flat tire or if something goes wrong, just pull off to the side of the road, make sure that you're safe, and then contact the Hertz or Turo or whatever number to ask them what to do next, and they will tell you. And even though it wasn't while we were renting a car, we actually did have an experience with a flat tire. I'll put the video up here. And basically what we did was we just sat in the car. It took about 90 minutes, I think, for the tow truck driver to get there. We just turned on a movie on Netflix and we just watched it. So it was not that big of a deal. And the final piece of renting a Tesla is returning the Tesla. With Hertz, at least you only need to have 10% charge left on the battery pack when you return it. In other words, it's nearly an empty tank. And that's actually really, really nice. So you don't have to plan a long charging session right before you return the vehicle. Now, definitely check with Hertz or whoever you're renting from what their policy is, just to be sure. But that was the policy that we had in place when we rented in Palo Alto. That was very, very convenient. We returned it with like 20% charge or something. So you don't have to figure out that whole thing where you have to figure out how much time you need to charge before you return the car to get your flight back home. The other thing that I wanted to note real quick, and I hope this is correct, but at least renting with Hertz, they said that we only have to return it with 10% state of charge. We don't have to return this thing like with a full battery, which is great because they probably just charge it up, you know, at the airport location. So anyway, definitely check about that to make sure it's the case, but that'll save you a reasonable amount of money since you won't have to charge the battery back up again. So that's the whole start to finish rental experience, or even if you test drive a Tesla, all of these things will come in very handy in terms of knowing, and speaking of handy, the doorknob thing. So don't forget, the door handle is like one of those things that really throws people. Push the back, grab it, open it, and it's really nice. It's just not super obvious. I'm not a huge fan because I feel like I'm a big fan of the design of everyday things. It's a classic book, and I think that every interface with humans should always explain itself. It shouldn't have to have instructions, but in this case it does. So that's one of those little minor gripes that I have with Tesla, is that this is a little bit too fancy for my taste, but whatever. At least now that you know how that works, you'll look like a pro when you walk up to the Tesla. You won't have to worry about that. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and useful. If you did, please do like it, because that's how YouTube determines whether to serve this video to other people, and hopefully it's worthwhile. And of course, if you enjoy this kind of thing and more deep dives into Tesla, please do consider subscribing to this channel so you can get more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for your support. I truly do appreciate it. And I got a couple of extra things that I wasn't originally going to put in this video from my Patreon patrons. So thank you for that extra information as well. And of course, if you want to join the team, just check out the link in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, Success is a Possible Outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.